entrepreneur, jet pilot, peak performance coach, and best-selling author brings you Living Outside the Cube, where great thinkers and doers of our century talk about how to help you be your best. Here is your host, Fabrizio Poli.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to another great episode of Living Outside the Cube. Today we're in connection with Dr. Bradley Nelson from Utah in the United States, and he's the author of The Emotion Code, which is a really interesting book here on energy medicine. So we're going to be talking about energy medicine. Bradley is a chiropractor, and then he discovered this whole thing about energy medicine. He's going to be telling us his story and sharing some thoughts and ideas and things that we can do to improve our health by using energy medicine. Brad, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks, Fabrizio. It's great to be here.
So, first question. How did you get into this field of energy medicine? Tell us a bit about your story.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll kind of capsulize it. It actually goes back to when I was started when I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. Really sick with the measles, and I was miraculously healed from that because of the prayer of my father, who was just praying that I would get well. And I had this change that went through my body from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, and I was instantly made well, something like that happens. And I learned at that young age of 7 that there's a higher power that we can draw upon and we can get help from. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward about another 7 years, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. Okay. And it was about 50% fatal, and there was nothing medically that could be done for me. And so my folks took me to get some alternative care from some alternative doctors, some holistic doctors back then. Mm-hmm. And they started working on me, and whatever they did, it worked, because within a few weeks I was feeling dramatically better, and I knew that they had helped me. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to be a healer. Mm-hmm. And so time went on, and I got more and more distracted from that. I got involved in business and computer programming, and I was about 6 months away from going into the MBA program at BYU in Provo, Utah. Mm-hmm. And so that dream of being a healer had kind of fallen to the wayside. And I had a conversation with my father, who kind of reminded me about it. And I prayed, and long story short, I got a really clear answer. I actually heard a voice. That's what I was supposed to do. Yeah. So I did. And when I got into practice, I was really just kind of obsessed with really getting to the underlying causes of what was wrong with my patients. Mm-hmm. And so I also was in the habit of praying and asking for help with everybody that I saw. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't anything that anybody ever knew. It was just a silent thing. I would just ask for help and try to get the help of the higher power to work on. There was more and more information that came down to me, and there were times when people would come in to see me, and I wouldn't know what to do, and I'd offer that prayer, and the information would just sometimes literally just flood in my mind about what needed to be done. And sometimes it was a totally different way of looking at things than what I never imagined before. Well, one of the things that I learned was that our emotional baggage is the single biggest underlying cause of all of our problems, all of our ailments, whether they're physical or mental or emotional. I mean, if you're suffering from anxiety or panic attacks or phobias or PTSD or eating disorders, there's emotional baggage that is the underlying cause of those things. If you're suffering from cancer, or you're suffering from fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or some other disease process, trapped emotions are always an underlying cause of those disease processes. Every case we've seen in 25 years now, trapped emotions are always an underlying cause. Sometimes they're the only cause. Sometimes they're a major cause. But they're always there. They're always a cause. And so I left practice in 2004 to write this book, The Emotion Code, so that people could learn about these trapped emotions and they could learn how to start getting rid of them for themselves. Because that's the beauty of this work, is that the emotion code is so simple. Anybody can do this. You can find your emotional baggage. You can release it on yourself. And yet the results can be just absolutely, really astonishing. The beautiful thing about this also is that it works with animals. Animals have emotions. They get emotional baggage. And emotional baggage is also the number one underlying cause of their problems as well. So.
Yeah. In fact, if you've probably seen the program, The Dog Whisperer. Yeah, and Caesar always says that the problem's not the dog; it's the owner, and obviously the owner's causing some emotional stress to the dog, and that's why the dog's misbehaving.
Right, absolutely, and that happens. So yeah, the emotion code is changing lives all over the world because it's teaching people that they can take back control. In most cases, what's going on with them doesn't need surgery, doesn't need drugs. They need to get rid of their emotional baggage, and their problems can go away, and they do.
So how does someone find the root cause? I mean, like say someone's got cancer, for example, or diabetes, whatever. So obviously this illness that they've got, there's the root cause is an emotion, a negative emotion, I should imagine. So how do we discover and remove that negative emotion so that we can get rid of the disease? And is that the only thing we need to do?
Well, no. I mean, when there are other things to look at, but I wrote the Emotion Code book first because by far the most common underlying cause of stuff is emotional baggage. Okay. The most common underlying cause of diseases and subconscious mind. You see, we live in our conscious mind, but the conscious mind is only a tiny fraction of our total intelligence. The subconscious mind is the part of us that is really smart. I mean, with our conscious mind, we can eat a sandwich, but the subconscious mind can take that sandwich and convert it into cardiac muscle tissue or new red blood cells or whatever. It's a level of intelligence beyond our ability to even really comprehend. Well, the subconscious mind remembers everything you've ever done, every face you've ever seen in a crowd, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled. It's all in there in the subconscious mind. The whole history of your health or disease, everything that needs to be done to get you well. There's a list in your subconscious mind and in everybody's subconscious mind of the things, the imbalances that they have that need to be ticked off and fixed for them to be totally healthy and have total abundance, both of wealth and health and love and relationships. So anyway, a trapped emotion, you see, here's what happens to us, and here's how this works. When we feel an intense emotion, what we're really feeling is a certain vibration of energy. Okay. And every emotion has its own specific frequency. So anger is a different frequency than grief, and that's different from sadness. They're all different. When you're feeling an intense emotion, the vibration can take over the body, and it can be so powerful that when that event is over, when the bully moves away or the divorce is over or you quit that job or whatever it is, the emotion that you experienced, part of that emotion can still be with you in the form of what we call a trapped emotion. So what we have found is that emotional baggage is real. Okay. Emotional baggage consists of these discrete areas, these balls of energy, emotional energy. Imagine this. It's a strange thing. It took me a long time to figure this out. You can't see this stuff. It's all invisible. Yeah. But a trapped emotion is a ball of energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of a cantaloupe. Literally a ball of pure emotional energy. And these lodge in the body in different places. And then what they do is they have two effects on us. They affect us physically because what you've done now is you've introduced into the body's energy field a distorting force. Now the body itself is really nothing more than a very complex energy field if you get right down to it. You know, we think of us as being organisms of skin and bone and everything else, but the reality is if you get right down to it, we're made of atoms, and atoms are made of nothing but energy and empty space. So these trapped emotions will distort the normal energy field of the body. If you distort the normal energy field of the body, you're distorting ultimately the body itself. You're interfering with the chemical reactions taking place in that area. You're interfering with the flow of acupuncture energy through that area. You're interfering with the lymph flow and everything else. So that's why trapped emotions cause physical 90% of all emotional baggage. And I prove it every week. We go on calls every week. I do webinars with people all over the world. And by the way, this is energy medicine, so it can be done at any kind of a distance. And I work with people.
I'd also like you later on to explain this thing about doing it at a distance, because this is something that a lot of people don't comprehend. But continue, please.
Well, but anyway, I routinely work with people who are in pain and get them out of pain. There was a lady I worked on today that spent $75,000 in the last 6 years to try to get rid of her tendinitis. And we got rid of it in about maybe 10 minutes because it was emotional baggage. And some of the emotional baggage that we have that's causing trouble for us is actually inherited. And what that means is that at the moment of conception, you can receive some emotional energy from mom or dad that they might have inherited, at their moment of conception from their mom or dad, and this may go back many generations.
Yeah.
And what we find is that when we release an emotion like that that's inherited, it releases not only from the person we're working on, but it also releases from all of those ancestors all the way back. And so we're making changes not only in this world that we see with our eyes, but also in the unseen world that's on the other side of what we like to call the veil, where our ancestors are still alive. We're still connected to them, and we always will be, and we're actually able to help them as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to this, and it's deep, but it's very, very simple. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
There was just to show you how simple this is.
Uh-huh.
I was talking recently with a woman who told me about how she got the emotion code, the book on audio. She started reading it and listening to it. Mm-hmm. And her son picked it up and started reading it and listening to it as well. And after a couple of weeks, he started practicing with his friends. And she didn't pay much attention. But a couple of weeks later, the phone rang. And the woman on the other end of the line identified herself as the mother of one of her son's friends. Mm-hmm. And she said, listen, your son's been doing this emotional thing with the boys. And she said, I don't really know what's going on. But she said, something has happened. She said, my son has had a really severe phobia of water. And he's had this for all of his life. And we've taken him to all kinds of people. Nobody's ever been able to help him at all.
Yeah.
She said, right now my son's in the pool swimming with the other boys. He said, your son did this to him. Uh-huh. How is this even possible? I can't even wrap my mind around this. What's he doing? Yeah. And those two boys are only 11 years old.
Wow.
Think about that. That's how powerful and how simple this is. And yes, it works. And that's the best thing about it. And the nice thing also is that anybody can do it. The information's all in the book. You don't have to go to somebody that's been trained, although we do offer certification. We have about 2,200 people certified in 58 countries around the world now that do this work for a living. Yeah. But you can also do it yourself. You can work on your own kids. You can work on your own wife or husband. You can work on your own animal.
Okay, so how does this work at a distance? Because in your book, you mentioned that you cure people at a distance. You don't physically have to be in the room with the person. You can cure them at a distance. Can you explain how this works? Because this is something that a lot of people find difficult to get their head around. The fact that you could be where you're over in Utah in the US right now. I'm over in Manchester in the UK. And if I've got some physical problem, you can help me from there through Skype, which is how we're communicating now. How is this possible? And how is it done?
It has everything to do really with quantum physics. Okay. And to tell you the truth, I don't exactly know. Nobody really knows how this works, but it's something that's been done for a long, long time. And if you do a search on Google, for example, for distance healing, you'll get lots and tens of thousands of hits. Yeah. And when I was in practice, I used to use this strictly for people who. Patients of mine who had gone away, and they would contact me and they needed some kind of help, and I would work on them. And the funny thing about it is I always knew how to do this. I never learned it from anybody. Okay. It was just something that I knew how to do. Okay. Well, basically the human body has this amazing ability built right into it to set aside its own needs, to act on behalf of someone else. And we call this acting by proxy or working by proxy, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what happens is we just go through this little simple process, and then we're connected. It's almost like dialing a cell phone and connecting with somebody. They can be anywhere on the planet. You can still talk to them. It's the same thing. Yeah. And it works really, really well. We do it all the time, routinely, and it works just as well, actually, as having someone there in person, because it's energy medicine, and energy knows no barriers of distance, you see.
Yeah, that's true.
So, as an example, I remember I was on right after the Emotion Code book came out, I was on a radio show in South Carolina, and there was a woman that came on the radio show from Ohio. Now, I'm in Utah. Yeah. And this woman tells me that she's got a really severe hernia, a hiatal hernia. Yeah. And she's going to have surgery on it the next day, but it's been bothering her so much. She gets acid reflux, and it's just been ruining her life. So she asked me if I would check her, and I tested her, and what I found was that she had a trapped emotion of resentment. Now, she's about 50 at this point, at that age, or at the time of this interview, and this trapped emotion of resentment I found doing this muscle testing, which is how we get the answers, occurred when she was about 35 years old. And she said, "Oh, I know exactly what that was about."
So you told her that it happened when she was 35, and she went, "Wow, how do you know that?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And anybody can do this. It's really simple.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I released the emotion. And she said it felt a little bit better, and I kind of forgot about it. Well, the next day, she went into the hospital to have surgery on this thing.
Yeah.
And before they do surgery, they usually do what they call a scout film X-ray picture to see if everything's working. And the doctor studied the X-ray for a while, and he came back into the room, and he said, it's completely normal. He said, we're going to cancel the surgery. You can go home. And so she sends me this email. It's got like 150 exclamation points in it. Never had another problem. I worked on a woman this morning who had probably paid $75,000 over the last 6 years for this tendonitis in her arms, and we got rid of it in just a few minutes. Another lady for 2 years had this piriformis syndrome, pain in the right buttock. She tried all kinds of things, taken all kinds of Tylenol, nothing had worked, and we took it to a 0. It was a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. Took it to a 0 in about 5 minutes. That's how powerful this stuff is.
Yeah.
And anybody can do it.
Yeah.
I'm just here to show people what's possible.
Yeah. So what role does nutrition play in all this? Because when we talk about health, we know it's important to eat the right food. There's a lot of movement now about vegan, raw foodism, and also exercise. And if you exercise first thing in the morning, your brain's more active and you have a more productive day and whatever. How does that play into health? Because obviously you can't just go and clear up someone's emotion. Or do these things automatically click into play once you've cleared their emotional problem? Then they start thinking, maybe I need to work out, maybe to eat more healthily. Is that what happens?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. One of the fascinating things actually about trapped emotions is that they will interfere with your ability to absorb nutrients.
Yeah.
They interfere with your ability to be well in a lot of ways, depending on where they lodge in the body.
Yeah.
For example, if you have a trapped emotion, a ball of anger, for example, that's stuck in your liver, it's going to interfere with all those chemical reactions and so on. But here's what I found when I was in practice.
Why would a ball of anger be in your liver? Is that where anger usually sits?
Well, the liver actually, yes, the organs in the body.
Yeah.
See, the ancient scientists believed, the ancient acupuncturists believed that the organs in the body actually produced those emotions. And what I have found is that they were right, that different organs in the body produce different emotional frequencies. So in other words, the organs and glands in the body are emotional frequency generators.
Okay.
So when you're feeling an emotion of anger, that's actually produced by the liver and gallbladder. Now think about this, okay? Think about
there is an expression in Italian, which you will know having spent time in Italy and speaking Italian yourself, when they say mi viene un fegato così, meaning my liver's got that big because I'm so stressed.
Yeah,
and there's this expression in Italian, my liver's got this big. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, think about it. When people drink, for example, they're drinking alcohol. The liver has to break down. Or one of the byproducts is they get angry. They break things. That's why that happens so much. The angry drunk is a parable in our society, right?
Yeah.
Another example that we talk about in the book actually is Dana Reeve, Christopher Reeve's wife.
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve, Superman,
Yeah.
broke his neck, right?
Yeah.
And then he died. And about a year after he died, his wife, Dana Reeve, young woman, came down with lung cancer. And people said, oh, well, she must have smoked. Well, she didn't smoke. Oh, it must have been secondhand smoke. It wasn't that. But the lungs produce these emotions of grief and sorrow and so on.
Okay.
And so she was, those lungs got overstimulated, and so she ended up having that disease. So there are all kinds of connections, you see, with all the organs and the glands in the body. So anyway, to get back to your question about nutrition, what I found when I was in practice is that there are really 6 different kinds of imbalances that we suffer from that lead to all of the diseases that we have. Now, one of those has to do with emotional baggage, and that's the most common kind of imbalance. But there are nutritional imbalances that happen to us. We can end up with parasites or some kind of infection, virus, bacteria, fungus, whatever. We can end up with problems because we have misalignments in the structure of the body. We've got bones out of alignment, other tissues out of alignment. We can be toxic. Maybe we've got lead toxicity or mercury from our old fillings, things like that. Or maybe we're eating foods that have additives or pesticides and herbicides. So there are all these different ways we can lose our health. And what I found is that the oldest idea in the history of healing is that that imbalances cause disease. And narrowed it down and found that there are really 6 kinds of imbalances. And during those years, by asking the subconscious mind what it really needed, and this is really the key to all of this, is that the subconscious mind knows what's wrong with you. And in the emotion code and in this other system where we find anything going on, which we call the body code, there are simple ways to ask the body what's going on, and it will tell you. Mm-hmm. And it can be surprising. And anything can cause anything is the old saying of the holistic physician.
Yeah.
And
interesting you say this, because my wife always says, she's big into herbalism and everything, and she says that if you eat the right food, your body will talk to you. And it will, and when you eat something that's not right, you will immediately know, oh, I shouldn't be eating this. But if you are eating toxic food, your body's not able to communicate to you.
Yeah, and most of the time we ignore the messages that are coming from the subconscious. But let me tell you something. Yeah. Here's what I've come to the conclusion, that all of the symptoms that we suffer from, whether they're anxiety or depression or panic attacks or phobias or eating disorders or PTSD or herniated discs or cancer or fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, no matter what it is, all of those things, even things like picking the wrong type of person to date over and over, or not being able to make enough money, these are all symptoms of the imbalances going on within. And if you figure out what those imbalances are and fix those imbalances, all of those things can change effortlessly. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of this work, and why it's spreading like wildfire all over the world.
Yeah. So now, how do people's emotions and emotional blocks play into the law of attraction?
Oh gosh. Well, think about this. Okay, when The Secret came out, right? Yeah. The Secret taught everybody that you can change things by changing what you think about. Okay. And the things that you think about are the things that end up being attracted to you. Yeah. But that's only with the conscious mind. Yeah. And the conscious mind, I believe, is an extremely small percentage of our total intelligence. The subconscious mind, however, is where our trapped emotions reside. Mm-hmm. Now, those trapped emotions are resonating out into space their own particular frequency of anger or resentment or frustration or sadness or grief or sorrow, whatever it is. Yeah. They're resonating that energy out into the universe, and it's going out into the immensity of space, and those things are being drawn to us as well. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. And so getting rid of our emotional baggage is a way to change what we're attracting on a subconscious level. And the subconscious is so much more important really than the conscious mind, because, I mean, the conscious mind is just, it's like a tiny phone booth on a battleship. That's really what it's like. Yeah. That's where we spend all of our time. And if we want to go, let's say we want to go north with our conscious mind, if the subconscious mind wants to go south, we're going south. The subconscious will take us with it. And now we know how to get rid of all the baggage so that the conscious and subconscious can be perfectly aligned.
So what can someone do to make sure they get rid of all these negative emotions and really perform at their best?
Well, the easiest way to do it is to learn the emotion code, and I have a free gift for your listeners or viewers, and that is they can go to emotioncodegift.com. It's emotioncodegift.com, and they can download a copy of the Emotion Code book, and they can also download the book on audio, so they can listen to it and read it and so on.
Okay, great. That's a good. Okay, now, in your work, you talk about the heart wall.
Yes.
Can you explain what the heart wall is? Because I found this really, really interesting.
Absolutely. Well, this is the most important part of the emotion code. Okay. What happened was, I'll give you the short version. I was trying to help my wife a number of years ago. She had a dream, very symbolic dream, and she asked me to help her decipher the dream. As I was trying to help her do that, I suddenly had what I can only describe as a waking vision, where suddenly before me, instead of the room I was in, I was looking at this beautiful hardwood floor. And I had this understanding that came into my mind at the same time that my wife's heart was underneath this floor. And I had no idea what this meant. It was very strange. And it lasted for several minutes. But what we found was when she was about 2 years old, because she was born into this very volatile family, her father was a rageaholic, it was very dysfunctional, she had put up a wall around her heart to keep her heart from being broken. Yeah. And we found that that wall was actually made of layers of energy, and those energies were trapped emotions that had gotten trapped in her body from earlier times.
Okay.
So what happened with her was the result of having this wall of energy around her heart, is that it was hard for her to feel positive emotions, easy to feel negative emotions. It was hard for her to feel really connected to other people. And she struggled with depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Well, as we started clearing those, it took us a couple of weeks. We finally cleared the last one, and suddenly she felt like she belonged for the first time in her life, with groups that she was involved with. Things changed radically for her. One of the next people that I saw that had a heart wall was a woman that came to me for neck pain. She was 38 years old, and she was a nurse, and she had seen a couple doctors for this neck pain. They couldn't help her, so she came in to see me. And as I was talking with her, she told me that she was single. She'd been single for 8 years. She was never going to date again. She was going to die single. She was a celibate person. And I said, well, what happened to you? She said that 8 years before, she was really in love with this guy who dumped her and broke her heart.
Yeah.
And so I checked her and found that from that breakup, she had developed a heart wall.
Yeah, of course.
It's not conscious. It's a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
There were 3 emotions making up this heart wall. And so
Was she also overweight by any chance?
Not at all.
Okay,
No.
because sometimes people that have that problem tend to become overweight, particularly women.
Sometimes people are hoarders because the hoard is an extension of their heart wall. And we've seen hoarders get well from having their heart wall removed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there were 3 emotions making up this wall for her. I cleared the emotions. The heart wall was gone. And suddenly her neck pain was gone too. Because sometimes people have neck pain because of a heart wall, and sometimes the tight shoulders and so on. And she left the office feeling fine. I didn't see her again for 3 months. When she came back in, and I'll always remember this, she looked great. And I said, hey, you look great. What's going on? I haven't seen you for a while. She said, she said, my neck's been fine since I was here. But, she said, you cleared that heart wall for me, and that really worked. She said, about 2 weeks after I was here, I found out my childhood sweetheart has been living right around the corner from me for almost 8 years. And we're dating. And we're in love. And I think he's going to ask me to marry him. So, and now if you see, if you multiply that by 10,000 probably, that's starts to get close to the numbers of people that are having this kind of change take place. People are finding joy who never could. I got an email recently from a woman in her middle 80s, about 85 years old or so. She said that she never had a happy moment that she could recall in her entire life. She had no idea what it meant to be happy, no idea what it meant to feel joy until that heart wall was taken down. She said now she can't wipe the smile off of her face. She's feeling joy for the first time in her life. It's not unusual at all for people to fall in love who never ever thought they would, sometimes in advanced ages. Listen, Fabrizio, this has been called the heart wall. It's been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine because when that wall is taken down, things start to change spontaneously for people, and you can do it yourself. And you can do it for free because you can go to emotioncodegift.com and get the book yourself. And people like,
okay, now, other question. What has abundance got to do with emotions? A lot of people have problems with money and problems with attracting money, and they go out there and they try and do stuff, and then it doesn't happen. What are the emotions and the energy to do with the money thing?
Well, it primarily has to do with the heart wall. Now think about this, okay? Steve Jobs spoke at Stanford in 2004 to the students. And said, somehow you've got to follow your heart. Let your heart guide you. Somehow your heart already knows what your best creation is going to be. And you won't be able to connect the dots until you're down the road quite a ways, right? That's what happened in his life, and look what he was able to do. Well, how do we follow our heart? I'll tell you what I believe, Fabrizio. I believe that inside each one of us is a perfect creation that we can bring into this world. I think that abundance lies within the heart of each one of us. But what happens to 93% of us is that we end up putting up this wall around the heart.
So we're back to the heart wall again.
We're back to the heart wall because the heart wall really, I have another phrase for the heart wall. I call it the abundance block. Because you see, think about this. I mean, where's your best creation? Your best creative ideas, they're not in your head. they're in your heart.
Yes.
And when you unlock that heart, when you take down that wall, those creative ideas can start to flow spontaneously, and they do. And abundance starts to be attracted to people when that wall is taken down. You see what's been happening all these years before we knew about the heart wall.
Yeah.
What people would do to try to create abundance is they would use this brain.
Yeah.
But actually, this is also a brain, and this is the brain that creates abundance and joy and love and romance and all the things that the ancients believed the heart to be.
Yeah.
They believed it was the seat of the soul and the source of all those things. And they were absolutely right. You know, they've done studies now where they found that the heart is by far the most powerful organ in the body, puts out an energy field 12 feet in diameter at least.
Yeah.
And they found that when you're feeling love or affection for another person, your heartbeat will actually appear in their brain waves and be measurable in their brain waves. Your heart rates synchronize. And so there's this communication going on between all of us all the time. So when that heart wall is taken down, amazing things can happen. I mean, I have seen people suicidally depressed, so depressed they had to decide every day if they were going to live or take their life that day. I've seen those people turn around in a matter of days from having that wall taken down. Every case of serious depression that I've ever seen always has a heart wall. And when that wall is taken down, depression just can go away. I mean, it just vanishes away. So anyway, that's...
Yeah, the sad thing is that when people are depressed and they go to see the doctor, he gives them a pill. And the antidepressants really are causing lots of problems. I mean, all these, a good friend of mine, Philip Day in the UK, he writes books about health and everything, and he tours the world giving lectures. And Philip was telling us in one of his books, he called The Mind Game, he went and studied all those people that go out in post offices and shoot 20 people and then shoot themselves. And he said, every single one of these cases, every single one of these people was on antidepressants.
Yes.
So they're very, very dangerous substances, and people should really stay away from them. But unfortunately, when someone's got that kind of problem, they go to the so-called expert. And what does the expert do? Prescribes a pill, which is supposed to sort the problem out. But as you're saying, the problem is a heart wall. And if we remove the heart wall, then we solve the problem, and they don't have to take any medication to do that.
Oftentimes it is. I mean, every case that we've seen so far, that's been the biggest underlying problem. Now you can have trapped emotions in other areas of the body as well, but the heart really is key. I like to think that we're living now in the age of the heart.
Okay, that's nice.
We're finally realizing that the heart really truly is a second brain.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about the transplant stories. You know, back in the 60s, they started doing heart transplants. And now there are thousands and thousands of stories where people had a heart transplant and suddenly their handwriting changed to the handwriting of the donor. Or they had memories of places where only the donor had been.
Yeah.
Or their taste in music or sports or food, suddenly now they'd gotten from the donor. And just so much going on. There are books written about this.
Yeah.
But yes, getting your own heart wall removed if you have one is just one of the most absolutely important things that you can do, not only for your physical health, but for your emotional health, for your abundance, you know, the amount of love that you have in your life. It's amazing. I mean, so many people fall in love. So many people find their soulmate when that wall's taken down.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible thing. And I'd like to say that, you know, the ego part of me likes to say, well, yeah, I came up with this, but no, this had to be shown to me. I don't have this kind of an imagination. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that something like this goes on, but it does.
Yeah.
And so here we are in the 21st century. We're finally starting to realize we are beings of pure energy, and the best way to take care of ourselves is with energy medicine that addresses our actual makeup. It makes perfect sense, really.
Yeah.
At least to me.
Yeah. Now, another thing you talk about in your book is, and we had just recently Ben Woodward, who's the president of Nikken, which you know. Ben's a personal friend of mine. Up until a few months ago, he lived around the corner from me, and now he's in LA as he's the president of Nikken. Now, Nikken, as you know yourself, produced this magnet technology. You talk about magnets and how magnets can help people with their health. Can you expand on that, please?
Well, sure, absolutely. First of all, again, we get back to the idea that the body is energy.
Yeah.
And magnets are another form of energy.
Okay.
So here's how I think about it, okay?
Yeah.
And I may be the only one that thinks of it this way, but you know, there was a guy by the name of Harold Saxon Burr. Back in the 1930s, he was doing studies using some equipment that he had devised, electrical measuring equipment, and he found that when he measured the egg of a salamander, just the egg,
Yeah.
he could actually measure the entire adult salamander's energy field emanating out from that single egg.
Okay.
Think about that. So he was actually able to discern the size of and the legs and the tail and the head and everything of that salamander emanating out of that egg. Now, what happens is the human body is an amazing thing. Our physical body is amazing, but I believe that within us we have this spirit, or whatever you want to call it, the prana, the chi, whatever. Yeah. And I believe that is the blueprint for the physical body.
Okay.
And that the physical body is duplicated in every detail in this energetic blueprint. Now, if a newt, for example, or a salamander loses its tail, it's able to grow that tail back. How? Because the cells just fill into that invisible 3D blueprint.
Okay.
Now, how do magnets work? What magnets do is they turn up the energy in that blueprint. And that's how I think people have been able to do amazing things, like, for example, regenerate cartilage where it shouldn't be able to be regenerated. You know, that's supposed to be impossible, but I've seen it happen myself. Yeah. When you turn up the power on that energetic blueprint, a lot of things can happen. And that's how I look at the magnets. There are other things as well. I mean, and I've seen incredible things happen with the magnets. I've seen bruises go away overnight. I've seen all kinds of...
also, you talk about the Omega wand?
The Omega wand, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another device.
Yeah,
that's another form of energy, and it's basically crystals that are put into a kind of like a pen device.
Yeah,
and that's something that you can also use. There's lots of different kinds of energy, and
so would you suggest using crystals then? Well, crystals another thing that can help with removing blocks and stuff like that.
I think that they can, absolutely. I mean, I use magnets, for example. This is a magnet made by Nikan. It's called a Mag Boy.
Yeah.
And they don't sell this one anymore. They've got a new one now, but that's a little better design.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I'm releasing something from somebody or from myself, I'll just pass the magnet like this from the forehead to the top of the head to the back of the neck a few times.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're putting energy into a meridian that starts at the tailbone and goes right over the top, right to the upper lip, which is called the governing meridian.
Yeah.
And in the same way, I mean, when we're releasing a trapped emotion, it's kind of like if you take a credit card, all right?
Yeah.
If you rub a magnet on the back, I'm not going to actually do this, but if you rub a magnet on the back of that credit card magnetic strip, you know, it's not going to be any good anymore.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to use it. So it's the same thing in a sense. When we're releasing trapped emotions, emotional baggage, we're using a magnet on this governing meridian, and it's kind of the same thing. It erases that trapped emotional energy that's in the body.
So it allows that spiritual thing to take control and shape the body the way it is, because obviously I should imagine that our spiritual blueprint is not a big fat person of 250 pounds. So if we start releasing the emotions and doing the magnet thing or whatever, then our bodies will automatically go back to that original blueprint, like the salamander when he loses his tail.
Yeah, you know, that's a fascinating thing. But one of the deeper teachings that we give to our students, our coaching students, is how you can use this to actually lose weight, and that is one of the things that happens. The blueprint actually can be enlarged by this emotional baggage, and getting rid of it is often a key to shrinking back to the size you should be.
Yeah, interesting. Brad, it's been great talking to you. How can people find you on the internet and find your book and your courses and stuff like that?
Well, the book is available, of course, on Amazon, and they can go to emotioncodegift.com.
Let me show it up to everybody. Here it is. Yep.
Now, if they want to get a free copy of if they want to get the ebook for free and the book on audio for free, it's about a $67 value. They can go to emotioncodegift.com.
Yep.
And then we have a website also at healerslibrary.com. Healers, H-E-A-L, healerslibrary.com, where there are lots of recordings and videos and different things that you can watch. Lots more information there, and there's information there about certification in the emotion code and also in the body code as well. For more information about the body code, which is the system, it's a self-study course in energy healing, the most advanced of its kind in the world. You can go to bodycodehealing.com and get information there about that one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for